First, I want to start with a huge congratulations on the movie. You did such great work on this.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. On behalf of our crew, I thank you.
So one of the things I'm curious about is you're pretty selective with what you direct. What was it about this material that said, "Oh, I have to do this"?
The characters in the story that Peter put into his book, that 100%. There were so many things about this that I thought were right for me as a filmmaker to work in. It's a space that I felt comfortable working in. But there are also so many things that were brand new. The idea of working with a robotic character, of course, is really exciting to me. And the story of a robot that becomes a mother, that's even better. That's really fresh and unusual. And I'm always looking for a challenge because you want to keep yourself on your toes, I think, as far as a storyteller. So those are the main things.
One of the things about this, I'm always curious about the editing process and how things come together. So, how did the film actually change after some friends and family screenings?
Well, all through, I'm really glad you asked that because there's a lot of curiosity about how editors work in animation. Because we don't do giant shots and cut into them like you would on a live action shoot because animation is expensive and difficult to make. A lot of story happens in editorial. There were many days where all of us, the story crew, and sometimes me just by myself, we would sit. Our editor is Mary Blee, and I would just sit in editorial with a drawing pad on my lap, and we would work on scenes and sequences and try to figure things out and take the time to solve story issues and to create things. So I would say the editorial bay is really the hub of the story wheel.
Well, the other thing about the editing room with animation is, you have the option in storyboards to alter so much before you go to final animation. And so I'm just, you know what I mean? I'm curious if anything did radically change after you started showing the storyboard version or the early animatics to friends and family or fellow workers.
Yeah, even before friends and family, just our own very own story crew looking at it, we would immediately get feedback from what we were seeing. One of the parts of the film that had the most iterations and was the last part of the film to go into production was the very beginning. Figuring out Roz's exact tone as she first walks into the forest and getting the right interactions. There's a lot to accomplish really early on. We've got to set everything up. We've got to set up how the characters feel about her and how she's presenting herself to the animals. And the thing that makes me happy is it seems clear and simple when you watch the final film, but that was a hard-won clarity. And it was a hard-won tone to get. Another part that we did over and over again, probably the most heavily rewritten part, is a part that I invented that is not in the book, and that is what I call the robot graveyard. That's a scene where Roz, in a sense, has a conversation with herself. And there's a lot of different ways that scene could have gone and did go, because I was just trying things out. And we were coming up to a screening, and we had done so many iterations that that was the only time in the entire process, because I invite people to disagree with me. It's the only way these things will work, is that if people help shape it alongside me. And there did come a day because we had to get to a screening, I said, that's it, no more changes. I'm not accepting changes. We have to decide on something before the screening. And my head of story, Heidi Gilbert, came in and immediately said, well, I don't think this works. And so she immediately disagreed with me. She didn't care. And she was right. So I rewrote it yet again. We eventually found the right scene.
One of the things about animation is every frame costs a fortune. But I am curious, what ends up costing more than people might expect? Like, was there a shot or two in the movie that was really expensive or really tough to pull off? And, people were like, yeah, you can only do this for 3 seconds.
Not really. I mean, yeah, there was nothing that was in particular more complex. The entire thing was pretty equal. I'm going to keep thinking about that. If I
You know what I mean, though? Yeah,
Yeah.
like for example, on Spider-Verse, they told me the upside down shot of her and like whatever, like that was incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Oh, I actually have an answer. I thought about it for a moment. Okay, so there's something that I've never done before. There's two things that were brand new to me that are unique to this film that were really critical in making the film work. There are two what we would call oneers in the film, where we have a protracted shot that is extremely complex and is technologically very difficult to pull off because so many different animators have to get things done inside the shot. There's a lot of crowds, etc. And there's a shot inside this lodge that Roz builds that is a oneer, and there's also a shot in the third act where Roz is trying to stay on the island and she's interacting with all these robots that have come to get her back. So those two oneers were two shots that I could absolutely, they were massive. But what they accomplished was absolutely worth the effort. There are also 3 different time lapses. I've never had that in a film before. And the interesting thing about the time lapses, the most critical one is the scene where Roz unlocks the animal language. And we messed with that for a long time, and there were different versions where that covered 3 different sequences, and she was gradually unlocking the language. We realized that we had to do it all at once to make it really noticeable, amongst other things. The interesting thing about it is there's a mix of things going on in all the time lapses. There's real time lapse. If you watch the sky, that's a time lapse. It is a constant fast forward. But the animals are breaking that time travel or whatever, the timeline. They'll zoom in and then they'll freeze and hit real speed and then they'll zoom back out again. So we're mixing 2 different types of timing in order to make the shot work.
Yeah, no, that is a fantastic shot. I'm just about out of time with you, so I have to ask you one other thing. Are you surprised at how popular Lilo and Stitch has remained? And what is it like voicing that character again in the live action film?
I like that the story and the characters have endured. It was my wish that the story and characters would have staying power, and I'm really glad that they have. And I've never stopped doing the voice. I do it for all the different stage shows and parades and everything. And it's nice to, like, several times a year be able to revisit that character.
As I said at the beginning of this, you are very selective with what you direct. Is there something else that piques your interest, or do you see yourself taking another few years before you're going to tackle something else?
Oh, I want to keep going immediately. I have to say, like, I'm really interested in continuing Peter Brown's story. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm always looking for things that inspire me, and I'm always looking for a challenge. Again, I don't want to ever, like, stagnate. Is that the right way to say it? I want to keep challenging myself.
Yeah. Well, listen, I am a fan of your work, and I really want to thank you for making this. People are going to love it. They really are.
Oh, I really hope so. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you do not have to worry. Have a fantastic day.
Okay, you too.